everybody. We're here today with Bassmaster Elite Pro Cole Sands, and we're going to talk about some baits today. We're going to start a new series. We're going to call Pro Tips, and we're going to kind of go through and let Cole take his expertise and kind of teach some of our viewers some things about what he likes to do with some of our Fishco baits that might help you catch more fish. So, Cole, appreciate you coming down today and hanging out with us. Congratulations to you, by the way, on making the series this year, and look forward to seeing what you do with it.
Thank you, man.
Let's start talking about ledge fishing a little bit today. I know that's a big thing up on the Tennessee River where you're from, on Chickamauga area and stuff. So let's talk about ledge fishing. And I know that as I started learning to ledge fish, the biggest thing I think is what makes a good ledge. What are you looking for when you're going out looking for a ledge, say on Lake Chickamauga? Let's use that for instance.
Yes, I mean, ledge fishing is definitely one of my favorite things in the world to do, because it's, you know, a deal where you get on a group of fish and catch a lot of fish. And when it comes to a good ledge, what I've noticed over the years, it's usually a couple different things. One, it's bottom contour. You usually want a hard bottom, whether it's shale. Sometimes it's wood, rock. So that's a big thing. But one of the biggest things on the Tennessee River you see is how the current hits these places. So if you got a creek mouth with 2 points, usually in the summertime ledge fishing, whatever point is getting hit with the current the hardest. It's kind of different than you'd think for winter fishing when the fish sit kind of out of the current. But in the summertime, they really like to sit on them current-facing places, and you know, if there's shale or any type of structure, just really makes it that much better of a ledge.
Okay, that's kind of interesting, because I've heard, and I was curious about that. You know, when you're fishing the upper side of a point, say, and water's coming on it, you would think that crazy current would blow those fish off, but I think there's something that works in that current that'll work over, and maybe when they get around rocks or wood or something, it kind of deflects, but it basically brings the food right to them.
Yeah.
So cool. That's a great tip. So what are some of your favorite baits to throw on a ledge?
Yeah, so I mean, there's really a variety of baits that work. And when I'm ledge fishing this summer, I usually got about 12 rods on the day. But the key is, you know, I'll have my big crankbaits, I'll have my big spoons, my big swim baits, hair jigs. But when it comes to consistently getting bites, especially when there's a lack of current, soft plastics really play a huge role. And I'll show you maybe 4 or 5 of my favorite Fishco soft plastics I love to throw. And we'll start with the one that'll get you a bite pretty much every single time, and that is a drop shot with a little Fishco Finesse 4-inch worm on it. This is just such a natural, very, you know, kind of a thinner profile worm, and Fishco makes some great colors. But pretty much rig this on a drop shot. Usually when I'm ledge fishing, I'm going with a little bit heavier weight, so like a 3/8 ounce. You can use a cylinder or just kind of the traditional shape. And then you kind of have a couple different rigging methods. You can either nose hook it like a lot of people do, you know, like that, something like that. And you know, there's a couple different style hooks when it comes to that. But usually what I do is I rig it weedless. So I'll get like a little 1/0 straight shank hook. This is an owner cover shot. They make a good one, but there's several good brands. And I just thread that little PB&J worm up there and just pretty much Texas rigging it. And that way it makes it so versatile too. You know, if I'm ledge fishing, a lot of times in the summer, I also might fish some grass for a minute. And with that setup there, you don't have to really change much. So definitely the drop shot's one of my favorites. And you know, another one of my favorites that's really become probably my favorite ledge fishing bait over the past 2 years is taking this 8-inch Fishco Finesse worm and Nico rigging it. And my favorite color is the green pumpkin blue swirl. The past 2 years, I can't tell you how many fish, especially this last year, throwing this bait that I caught that were, you know, 6 to 8 pounds using this bait right here. And pretty much all I'm doing is taking a little O-ring, running it up about a little bit, maybe 5/8 of the way up the worm, kind of where it starts to get a little bit thicker. But what's cool about this worm, it is, you know, a skinnier profile than a lot of thicker trick worms, so it's still got that great action. And then just taking a nail weight, usually I go with a 3/32 is kind of my starting weight. I really like a slow fall when it comes to this, putting it in the fat end or the head of it. So just kind of sticking it in there, and then taking a Nico rig hook. I think VMC makes this one. And I personally like to rig it with the hook point sticking up. So I'll show you once I get it hooked. So it's stuck like that. So when that bait falls, it falls like that. And that hook point's sticking this way. That way when they eat it, it's already at the top of their mouth. I've seen people rig it the other way, but for me, that's what makes the most sense. And usually my land ratio when one bites this is really good. The big thing with this, when you're fishing this bait out deep, it's a pretty lightweight bait compared to, you know, like a 1/2 ounce jig or stuff like that. So that's just a little 3/32 or even like an 1/8 ounce weight. And the key is you want to throw it up current, and this bait's not going to maintain bottom contact the whole way. You want to throw it up current, let it go to the bottom, hop it a couple times. And I think where this bait becomes so effective is when this bait is drifting through the current. It's just such a natural look, and that 8-inch finesse worm looks so good in that current. And it catches a lot of fish and catches some really, really big ones too. And then another one of my favorites, one that's been a staple for I don't know how long, is that Plum Apple Mac Daddy 10-inch worm from Fishco. And I love it on the ledges. Now, a lot of times ledge fishing too, I'm fishing brush piles. And when it comes to brush pile fishing, I don't think there's ever been a better bait made than a 10-inch worm. But a pretty standard rigging on that. I usually put like a 6/0 hook in it. I like an extra wide gap worm hook, so just stick it in there. And then when it comes to weight size, it depends a little bit on current. But usually I go with a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce, just a tungsten weight. And sometimes I'll peg it. Most of the time I do peg it. Every now and then I won't peg it if I'm fishing just a ledge with not a whole lot of structure, just because I like the separation from the weight to the bait. I think it gives it a little bit more action, makes it fall a little bit more naturally. But last but definitely not least, we got to talk about ledge fishing, and that's the Ned rig. A lot of people think of a Ned rig on rocky banks and up shallow, but one of my favorite things to do is to get that double deuce from Fishco. This is one of my favorite colors. This is green pumpkin purple copper flake, and it's just a real natural color. Looks really good on a lot of lakeside fish. It's also a great spotted bass bait. I know you catch a lot of spots on this. Great smallmouth bait as well. And we have the little deuce and the double deuce, both catch fish really, really good. But pretty much just taking a Ned rig, same way with the Ned rig, I kind of vary it depending on the current. I usually start pretty light, like a 1/10 or a 1/8, and I might move it up just to get it down there. But when the fish are super, super pressured, that's a bait that'll get you bite on the ledges when nothing else will. And a lot of times on the ledges, I do go with the double deuce just because it is a little bit bigger profile. But pretty much just straight, thread it up the hook. I almost always leave my Ned rigs exposed. I think the hookup ratio is so much better, and you just want to get it as straight as you can. And that's a really natural looking mill coming down the waterway. And I think with that light Ned rig head, it just trickles down that current so well. But this is actually a really versatile bait too, because I've used it on a big shaky head before. One of my favorite ways to rig it is on a wobble head, and it fits a wobble head very, very nicely. And usually with that wobble head, one thing I'll do, I'll throw it out there in the current, kind of trickle it down, and a lot of times I'm keeping the reel moving, and I'm just bouncing across every little bit of structure, and that's really good. And then another thing that's kind of a real natural presentation is the old school Carolina rig. You got your 1/2 ounce weight, and that 4-inch double deuce, man, it's just such a killer bait that you can rig it a lot of different ways. I know we've talked about, and we've done before too, is putting it on a drop shot wacky rig. Works really good there. There's just a lot of different applications for this bait. But when I'm ledge fishing, I'll usually have at least these 4 soft plastics tied on.
Cool. Well, you got a lot of different techniques there. That's some great ideas, and what I like about it is there's some old school things there that's always tried and true. But sometimes these fish see so many baits. There's really not a lake anymore that's not a finesse lake. It's funny, you take the 10-inch worm and you pound a half fish will pound it. You think that only big fish hit it. And the same thing, a lot of people think of Neds for smaller fish, but man, at the 7-8 pound fish.
Oh, yeah.
My best personal bag on Chickamauga came in the wintertime on a 2 3/4 little deuce. So, you just never know. Fish will just tell you. They're funny. They'll just tell you what they want, but you have to try different things. So that's a lot of great tips. The only one thing I wanted to ask to finish up is there any particular trick or way you may fish a ledge that might be a little different than what everybody out there does standard that might give somebody an edge on how to catch a few more of those ledge fish?
Yeah, I think a couple things we did hint on, just kind of some of these really natural colors that we have, the swirls, a little bit different color schemes that they're not seeing every day. Green pumpkin, blue swirls shows up a pretty good bit different than just straight green pumpkin. I think that would get you in it. Might not make a huge difference, but you get 1 or 2 kicker bites in the day. That's the difference between 10th place in the tournament and winning the tournament. That a lot of times, like I said, I go really lightweight on my stuff, even if I am fishing deep, just because it's more of a natural profile. And then just don't be afraid to change angles on these ledges. A lot of people that sit down current and throw upriver, which is the right thing to do most of the time, but I always like to move a little bit, and what works one day might not work the next. So kind of keep an open mind, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. One thing I'll throw in that I learned early about ledge fishing up there, and I'm still learning as we go. But sometimes, I think a lot of people's natural deal, even whether you're ledge fishing or point fishing, sit out deep and throw up shallow. Well, I've caught a lot of fish sitting up shallow and pulling up the ledge. Sometimes it's easier to keep your bait in contact with the bottom and in the strike zone better. So that's something I like to do a lot of times. It's a little different than normal. I've pulled up on a point with a good ledge on it and watched boats fish it on a community hole, and I may pull up in 6 foot of water and power pole down, throw out in 30 feet and drag it up and get bites that those people miss. So, man, great tips today. So we appreciate you tuning in with us. Again, Cole Sands, Bassmaster Elite Pro. Keep up with him. Watch him on Bassmaster Elite Series this year. And you guys have a good day. We'll see you on the next tip.